Hi y'all, I'm Lee.
I'm the Boimler.
This is Deck Check, and today we will be doing a deck profile on Porco Galliard on deck. I'm gonna pass it over to Nolan here, and he's gonna explain to y'all why Porco is super duper strong and has potential to be meta defining.
Alright, so Porco is a very interesting character. He's a 7-hander with 24 health, which is pretty crazy for a 7-hander. We have his face saying Enhance, Mill 3, and your Fury or Titan gets +1 speed, +1 damage. And then if you have 4 or more attacks in your card pool, you add one from your card pool to your hand, and then add another card from your hand to the card pool face up. And you may transform Porco Galliard. When you do choose to transform him on his Jaw Titan side, it says passive, your Fury or Titan attacks get +2 speed and +2 damage. And it has a quirky response that says Sacrifice a Foundation. After your rival plays a block, you seal it, canceling any breaker abilities or any abilities that could be played on block. Now, hopping over to foundations, a lot of our foundations stand out in certain ways, as we have a lot of foundations that response when hitting the discard pile from the mill or maybe even from your hand. We have a lot of draw power like Plan Coup, and we have latent skill and Botans in order to draw into the attacks you need in order to finish the kill. We have things like Unbashed Manner, I'm With You, and Hostile Introduction that kind of respond or have a passive text when entering the discard pile that help buff your attacks or negate your opponent's abilities. The key foundation I would say that makes the deck almost perfect is 2 of them. That's I'm With You and Marley's Warriors, as I'm With You can give minus damage or plus damage based on the situation you're in. And Marley's Warriors is a first form that can be played in order to give all your attacks +1 to the check for the turn, which is wonderful for stringing attacks. Speaking of attacks, if we go over to the attack, you'll notice that we have a lot of low difficulty attacks with significant stats or the ability to gain significant stats. These attacks can easily be able to kill your opponent with Porco's ability to pick them back up again or give them stats, or potentially be a lottery machine, as when you mill, you might hit something that have another response to give your attack more damage. The things that stand out to me most here are going to be teaming with the Attack Titan and the Jaw Titan's Bite, as teaming with the Attack Titan is wonderful as a finisher attack, as it doesn't have a lot of difficulty on it since you have a bunch of attacks in your card pool. And the Jaw Titan's Bite is an attack that gives passive 1 damage to all the other attacks you play in that turn, so long as it's in the card pool. Now, as I move over to assets and actions and backups, we'll notice that we have Military Airship. Military Airship can pick up a card from your card pool and add it to your hand while committing and freezing the asset. This is wonderful in him as he wants to play multiple attacks in one turn in order to finish the kill. You have the ability to play an attack again with this card. And for the actions, Avoiding Conflict is here also for the response when entering the discard for +2 damage or -2 speed, and Draw Power, as well as an amazing block modifier. Combined Firepower is here to kind of cheat the card pool, as when you pick up a card from your card pool and then add one from your hands, you can add this one to make it so it doesn't count towards progressive difficulty, that way making it easier to play more attacks for the turn. And we have Grisha. Grisha's Attack Titan has a form that sacrifices it to add any Fury attack from your discard pile to your hand. Since Porco mills so much, you're going to be adding almost anything you want, typically teaming with the Attack Titan, going back to maybe the main support system of the deck being Grisha and teaming with the Attack Titan for the kill. Now, Porco is a very interesting deck that can fit into the metagame by killing quickly and having high health for a 7-hander and easy to play attacks. This deck ultimately will be really good in Louisville, Kentucky for the upcoming regional, and I definitely say this is a must-play deck. It's also super fun to play coming from me.
All right, Nolan. You played this deck a bunch. You've played it at I believe the last 4 or 5 locals. You've been grinding up Porco, cooking up Porco for a while now. What are some of your favorite or strings or combos that everyone should keep an eye out for, or like what are combos that you would play in this deck, or like how would you string your attacks?
Typically, when you want to kill them is turn 2. And when you look, your hand will always be different no matter what. But if you have Sweeping Daggers or the Jaw Titan's Bite, I would always say to play these ones first, as they are typically the highest difficulty attacks in the deck. You want to get rid of that, making sure you don't have to commit Foundations if you do check a 3 on that 4. After that, I'd say you could either play Besiege or maybe a Frenzied Dash in order to kind of trick your opponent into either playing a block or maybe just taking something kind of as bait. That, or if you have Confused Strike or Makeshift Maneuver, you can also use that as bait or more poke leading into the final kill, which typically is Frenzied Dash or teaming with the Attack Titan.
All right, that's very good to know. Can you please explain to us why we are playing the Makeshift Maneuvers and Confused Strike?
Yes. The Makeshift Maneuvers and Confused Strike are lower difficulty attacks that have decently good stats, and their abilities aren't as good as the other ones, but they can fit with his character very well. As Makeshift Maneuver's response, the next attack -1 difficulty if you discard this from your hand. The only effects that can really do that are Latent Skill and Botan's Coaching, but that's why we only have 2 of it in the deck, is because it's kind of niche, but mainly it's a 2 difficulty attack, which is really crazy for our meta right now. It's a super easy to play attack that you can buff up with Porco's ability, or the lottery machine that he has, hitting I'm With You, or Hostile Introduction, or Loss of Consciousness. And then Confused Strike is pretty much the same thing, as it's pretty good stats for a 2 difficulty attack, and if it deals damage, you can commit your rival's character, which there's a lot of characters that this can do really good against, like Bakugo 4 committing so he can't discard one from the card pool, or necessarily any character that can do something during the opponent's turn.
For sure, like you can also commit Annie, you can commit Godzilla so he can't get +2 to his check. There's a lot of characters out there that have relevancy on face of their character. Is there any characters that you would say that this has a rougher matchup into? And if so, how would you go ahead and how would you play against those characters?
So, characters that I noticed that can, counter this deck easily, there's very few, but the characters that are super defensive, like Rodan or Jin from Yu Yu Hakusho, or typically counter this, as it can give -speed and you can block frequently everything, because it's a lot of stats. Like it's usually a 5 mid for 9. If they can reduce the speed by 3 or sometimes 2, it can sometimes hurt the deck if they block too much. Typically, I don't have to worry about that because turn 2, they're usually not going to be blocking that much, and that's when you usually plan to kill them. And also decks like Life, where they build things like Frantic Rescue, giving your attacks more difficulty, or other abilities that can get rid of attacks. Essentially, defensive decks that can be defensive by turn 2 kind of counter his strategy.
Speaking on the topic of defensive decks here, we have seen an uptick of like buzz and talk about Hanji 1 from AOT 1, just the ability to build a 9 Titans off rip. Do you think this matchup has a good 50-50 matchup into Hanji, despite her having so many ways to negate damage with the Reign of Titans that can just do -3 damage, and then response on play with the 9 Titans that do -4 damage? How do you feel the matchup is against a rising star like Hanji?
It's fairly good because typically you kill by turn 2, and Hanji usually builds backups turn 1 and foundations. So if they plan to block things, it's a little bit harder if they have more backups in their stage. And minus damage is sometimes discomforting for this deck, but I've noticed that a lot of Hanji players, or players that have damage reduction, usually reduce the damage of the first few attacks, thinking that that's all I'm going to play for the turn, not knowing that I plan to kill them in that same turn and not waiting. Typically this deck is very poke and run, but sometimes it pokes so much that the opponent just dies.
And I assume when you say about your string, you're talking about sending your first 2 or 3 attacks, and then them negating the damage, because either they don't want to be hit with the Confused Strike where they have to commit their character, or they just don't want to take damage, and then I assume you just end it with a Frenzied or a Teaming with the Attack Titan for a kill?
Typically, yeah, it's the thing, whenever I begin playing attacks by turn 2, I might have only like 2 foundations or 3 foundations. So a lot of people think, oh, he can't kill me. I don't know why he's playing attacks. But in many situations, this deck has been so consistent to a point of where it can do 30 damage by turn 2 if the opponent blocks 2 attacks. Simply because he can just keep on picking up and playing more. And his last attack, either Frenzy Dash, teaming with the Attack Titan, or something else strong, typically has the most damage out of all the attacks you play in your turn, making it so your opponent blocks the bait, and then you get to hit them with the fish and sinker.
And I can definitely vouch for getting turn 2'd with him only having 2 or 3 foundations. I can definitely vouch for that. Last thing before we wrap it all up, I did notice that we are playing quite a lot of attacks. Do you want to explain your thought process for the ratios of this deck with how many attacks we're playing and everything else in here?
Yeah, so when I first built him, I didn't put a lot of attacks in him because I like aggro decks, but I don't like checking 3 a ton or beginning with too many attacks. But for him, he is one of the very few exceptions in any character in the standard format right now, as I play 26 attack cards, basically guaranteeing that I draw into maybe 5 turn 2. That way I can guarantee a kill. Some people think it's really inconsistent and I'll check it 3 more often, but if turn 1, if I build at least 2 foundations, I can probably make the kill, especially if one of them is Marley's Warriors.
In addition to that, let's say hypothetically you build 2 turn 1, right? How does it look for you if you can't hit the turn 2 kill with only 2 foundations? They're probably committed into their attack turn.
Sometimes you just gotta hope and pray, because this deck is definitely a type of a one-shot thing where you just want to kill them as soon as possible. And some decks have a hard time killing turn 2 as well. If I go first and they go second, so they might not be able to do the 24 damage in one turn, giving me an additional turn to kill them. And sometimes, let's say I draw into more foundations than attacks turn 2, I'll probably just build them up and then try to play defense until I do get a super good attack turn.
Alright, so final thoughts here before we wrap up the video. Give us the pros and cons, 3 things you like and 3 things you don't like about this deck, and just some tips and tricks for anyone that is potentially building Porco Galliard on death.
So one of the main things I definitely like about this deck is that it's really good for budget. The only main thing that's super expensive here is teaming with the Attack Titan and Sweeping Daggers, as they're somewhere in the 20 to 40 range. Almost every other card is insanely cheap, and this deck is very easy to build if you're a beginner or wanting to get into the game. Or if you're a fan, for my second one, I would say, if you're a fan of the retro format, I know that a lot of my people that I talk to that like retro, whenever they play fire decks, they're very, very aggro and want to kill as soon as possible and pump damage and just do a bunch of different kind of drastic things, where this deck also has that same energy, as it's like a lottery machine. When you mill 3, you never know what you're going to hit. As for my last thing that I like about the deck, is that you can play cards that are lower difficulty and still have them do decent damage, even though their printed damage isn't that well. You can also, the cool thing about Porco is that it says you may transform him. So, let's say you plan on picking up more attacks in the card pool and just keeping on playing them over and over and over again. With Porco, you can just keep doing that. You don't have to transform him. Typically, you only want to transform him when you think you need it for the kill. Now, my 3 cons, I would say, would probably be, if you can't kill him by turn 2, you might be screwed. You might die if they're a very aggro character. Another thing is that kind of a con is the lottery machine kind of thing. It's fun, but sometimes it doesn't hit, or sometimes you don't hit an I'm with you or loss of consciousness, and it kind of makes an eerie feeling where it's like, I don't know what's coming up, or I don't know what stats I can guarantee. And for the last con, I would say sometimes not hitting the cards that you want is a very big struggle in the deck, as I play 4 Grisha in order to maybe pick up a teaming or a frenzied dash, but if I don't get them until late game, typically I'm not going to be able to kill them.
Alright. One last thing. Do you feel like that last con? I noticed you specifically said that sometimes not hitting the cards can kind of hurt. Do you think that problem is negated by the, let's see, 4, 8, 12 draw engines that you do play?
Yes, it definitely is. Latent Skill, Botan, and Plan Coop all have a very good sense of drawing. Planned is a kind of a gamble, just like his character, where it's mill 3, and then for each non-attack card you milled, you draw 1. It can be really good if you're in a situation where you just need an attack and something hits, and then boom, you can just play the planned in order to draw more. Latent Skill has always been a good foundation ever since My Hero Set 1. Being able to discard 2 cards to draw 2 cards can also combo with I'm With You, Loss of Conscious, and all things that enter the discard pile. It also gets you 2 new cards, so you could draw into more attacks. And then Botan's coaching is perfect for certain moments. It's also amazing if you have 0 cards in your hand, which sometimes you do, in order to draw a card for free.
Alright, to wrap it all up, this was our deck check profile of Porco Galliard on Death. I hope y'all enjoyed that. If y'all have any comments or anything y'all want to say it in the description. If any of y'all build this deck, please let us know how you like it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check our other socials on screen. Don't forget to, support our sponsors, Combat Power Gaming. Shout out to them. And yeah, thanks for checking our video. Have a good rest of y'all's day.